Poole. I'm the program director for Stockton Self-Help Housing here in Stockton, California.
Hi, I'm Fonda Whitney Ramirez. I'm the Assistant Program Director for San Joaquin Stockton Self-Help Housing.
Awesome. So I know that Stockton Self-Help Housing is fairly new. Why don't you give an introduction to the services that you provide to the people in Stockton?
Well, what we do is we're working with individuals who are homeless, who have profound levels of mental health issues and substance abuse issues. We're a low barrier program, which means we take people who have active mental health issues going on and substance abuse issues, and we work with them through a 4-phase approach to move them from being homeless and untreated to becoming stable and prepared to go into permanent housing.
Okay. So who are you partnering with in Stockton to provide these services in the 4-step?
Well, our primary funder is Behavioral Health Services. It's the county mental health program. They are providing this grant through the Mental Health Services Act at the state level. It's viewed as an innovation project. So it's a 5-year grant to look at a new approach to providing services to chronic homeless individuals who have mental health and substance abuse problems.
Interesting. So typically the demographic of people that you're working with are individuals who have mental health issues.
Right.
Are they coming out of a certain institution? Are they coming out of prison? How do you get in touch with them? And how do they find their way into your program?
I'll let Fonda talk about that.
So all of our referrals that we receive come from our behavioral health service partner, and they have basically an intake, or let's say like a questionnaire that they ask their clients that they think that will fit the progressive housing model. And so once that has happened, they've identified the client that they think that will fit the model. They reach out to us and we do an intake, very vague intake. And after our intake, we move them right in, and they usually come in at level 1. And the goal is to move through the progression to level 4.
Mm-hmm. And level 4 is permanent, sustainable, independent housing, right?
Right.
Interesting.
Level 1 is what we call pre-contemplation. It's an individual who has not made a decision to gain mastery over the addiction and not necessarily committed to treatment or to the program that we have here. They progress into level 2, where they're in contemplation, which means they're working to develop a plan on how to deal with their mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and homelessness. That plan is usually developed as a cooperative activity with a therapist from Behavioral Health Services and Stockton Self-Help Housing. When they become capable of sustaining their treatment regimen for mental health and substance abuse and are ready to begin working on becoming prepared to be independently housed, they progress into level 3 when they become very close to being prepared to live independently, have undergone some independent living skills training. They progress to level 4, and we begin to get them ready to move out on their own. While they're in the program, they're establishing a tenant history. So when they go out to apply for an apartment, they will have an established tenant history through Stockton Self-Help Housing.
Very good. My last question, and I think, Fonda, you touched on this a little bit before. We're establishing a progressive housing model in some ways, and the interesting part is that it's related in sort of a root of what Sacramento Self-Help Housing is doing here in Sacramento, right? So what are the sort of similarities between interim housing, one of our programs that we have in SSHH, as well as permanent supportive housing? What principle is translated over to you guys in Stockton?
So it's an extreme mirror. So the progressive housing looks like interim housing, and it also looks like permanent supportive housing. So it's kind of like a combo of both, the best of both worlds. So you basically would come in at, as Steve has stated, in the level 1. That would look like interim housing, right? Level 1 and level 2. So you come in, I always say bare bones, and we get the things that you need: your ID, your social, security card, and we have a housing case manager that starts looking at your barriers. And then in level 1 and 2, you're working on those barriers. And then by level 3, that's when it kind of starts to look like permanent supportive housing, right? But so you get a lease, and so that matches our permanent supportive housing in Sacramento, their lease tenants. And level 3, you have a lease, you pay your rent. And by level 4, there's a portion in there that has like a RA. So not only are you guys paying rent, you have someone that went through the program and is now making sure the house is ran the same way as we would do the interim housing. So it's kind of awesome, because this program here, we've been able to use our 2 really good programs that we offer in Sacramento, which are interim housing and permanent supportive housing. And so here you get both just within one program.
Right. And or level 1 and level 2 individuals functions essentially as clients, or probably more technically as guests. And then when they progress to level 3 and 4, their status with us changes to that of tenant. So they, just like Fonda was saying, they have a lease, and from that moment, they begin building a tenant history. They make a small payment for rent to the agency. So we can build a tenant history for them to be able to go out and have independent housing at the end of level 4.